Hi, I'm attachment specialist Adam Lanesmith, and today I want to talk to you about transactional relationships. Specifically, are they good, are they bad, or are they neither? I got a lot of questions about transactional relationships, and a lot of people in unhappy marriages will often describe them as transactional. It feels like you're just feeding each other back and forth without actual love or care or intimacy involved. I also wrote a book about this called Exhausted Wives, Bewildered Husbands. It's all about how to fix the attachment in that relationship to build emotional intimacy. But one question I get after people read that book is, well, I get a lot of frequent feedback, I should say. People write in with feedback on the included communication skills, on how to meet each other's needs, how to build a relationship based on mutual care and mutual good transactions in a way. It's negotiating to get your needs met. Most people are pleased with that setup, but every so often I get an email with a very honest question that I've heard many times. People say, Adam, your method turns every relationship into a transactional exchange. Isn't that a bad thing? I understand the sentiment. I do. I believe what people are really asking is, are you encouraging people to exploit each other? That's mostly what I'm hearing. Or are you encouraging people to turn this into a cold system where they demand that their needs get met back and forth and withhold if they don't? No. No, let me say it louder. Absolutely not. I am not encouraging a transactional system where people get their needs met at the risk of leaving the marriage if they don't. I'm not encouraging a system where you blackmail your partner. I am not encouraging a system where people withhold love from each other. I would never encourage that kind of system. Exploitation is not the target. Instead, the goal is to create a system of open and honest transactions rather than destructive hidden expectations. And I'm going to explain the difference because we've been conditioned to fear transactions. People today face dozens of transactions throughout their day. Financial ones especially dominate our thoughts because we live in a consumerist culture where we're encouraged to go into debt as deeply as possible to build up as many material possessions as we can get. The very concept of a transaction begins to smell like selfish exploitation for the sake of getting the highest possible value out of the other partner while paying out as little as possible. What some people hear then when I encourage partners to trade their needs back and forth openly is, make sure you're getting what you want and paying as little energy as possible. Use your partner to fulfill your own needs. Maintain boundaries so you aren't offering too much. And that's what some people hear. I've had some people write in and say, my partner read this book and now they're demanding I meet their needs before they'll meet any of mine. Absolutely not. It's hard to fault people sometimes with this view because of the materialistic and selfish culture where we live. But think for a moment if we lived instead in a culture which valued reciprocal sharing, viewed nurturing of others as a higher priority than accumulation of resources, and prioritized the satisfaction of all parties involved instead of an us versus them balancing act. Such a system would be based on more than financial success or exploitation. That would be a system based on love. In Exhausted Wives, Bewildered Husbands, my book, I present the explicit negotiation of needs where the parties are assumed to love one another. Key assumption. Marriage, long-term romance, parent-child bonds, friendships, all kinds of relationships are all based on the assumption of existing love between the parties. The two parties involved share a given expectation that each will value reciprocal sharing, view nurturing of others as a higher priority than the accumulation of resources, and prioritize the satisfaction of all parties instead of an us versus them balancing act. That's key to love. This means transactions will not be one-sided selfish exploitation. In fact, if anything, the parties are expected to be overly generous to one another out of care for the other person. Asking your romantic partner, for example, for a romantic evening together should get a response of something like, yeah, I'd love to do that. How do we make that happen? Rather than, well, I'll only spend time with you if you pay me $200. Nobody wants to be married to that. And a lot of people are presenting their needs that way without the explicit price tag. The assumption is that each party wants to meet the needs of the other out of love. While you do have needs of your own, and you present those as part of the transaction, getting your own needs met is not your highest priority in the transaction. Bear in mind that all relationships could be said to be transactional. One party might be charging zero on the surface, but there's really an exchange of time, energy, resources, and clear expectations for what will not be tolerated. You may not believe your relationship with your best friend is transactional, but try stealing from them in plain sight and see how fast the relationship unravels. Or bluntly tell your best friend you don't feel like comforting them when they're hurting, and you'll quickly see that your belief and love for them disappears. They won't think you love them. Boundaries are also transactions. Respect my need for blank, and I'll continue to spend my time with you. That is a transaction, just not when based on exploitation. It's not one based on selfishness. It's not one based on one's own fulfillment. It's shared mutual fulfillment based on love. Now, we live within systems of unstated transactions and hidden expectations every single day. It's better to make them obvious with clear statements so we don't stumble over secret needs and unintentionally hurt others and our relationships. The key difference and the real key point where all these things between loving transactions and selfish transactional relationships become obvious is when one party fails to uphold their side of the bargain. This may come about due to a lack of ability, an honest mistake, even resentment, bitterness, or callous disregard. I've had so many couples when they have the birth of their first child, the wife is absolutely incapable of thinking about just about anything but that child for the first few months. Sometimes she'll have a C-section. She's also healing from surgery. There can be any number of reasons that a couple can be arguing and fighting and at odds after the birth of a child. It can be a tense time, especially your first child for a lot of couples, especially if attachment isn't fixed. It really brings to the fore that love is not at the heart of your marriage. The difference between love and selfishness is this. When those needs aren't being met, a selfish transactional partnership sees the offended party disconnect in anger and refuse to meet any more needs of the other party without reparations. A loving transactional relationship would see the offending party forgive their partner and continue to meet their needs in good faith while giving them an openly stated chance to repair that trust. A loving partner does not act as a doormat. They're acting out of a desire to see their partner fulfilled, and it's not that they ignore their unmet needs or stop caring if they're fulfilled. Again, they're not a doormat, but getting their needs met is not a prerequisite for meeting the needs of their partner, especially during complicating times. At such a time, the loving partner may actually recognize their partner has another hidden need that's not being stated. They may not even be apparent to the lacking partner's awareness. Your loving partner might shift and point out the incongruous behaviors and help the other partner figure out what's really underlying the refusal to meet their needs. After all, it's not truly loving to remain in a relationship and enable someone to exploit you. But the loving partner does not make changes and apply boundaries for the sake of selfishness or out of not having their price paid. They're doing it out of genuine love for their partner, and they're seeking real fulfillment for both parties. Transactional relationships are not inherently bad, then. The real dangers are hidden expectations and secret transactions which one party is not privy to. These encourage tremendous resentment and fear, and they lead to feelings of exploitation. Secret transactions are not born from love, but from fear and insecurity, and they will tear your marriage apart. Loving transactional relationships are at the core of the human experience. Do not fear reciprocal sharing of needs. Just make sure the person you're sharing with wants to meet your needs in return. And that's love. Thank you for watching. I'm Adam Lane Smith, attachment specialist. And if this video has been helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Thank you very much. Until next time.